When the RMS Carpathia got to New York after the Titanic sank, it had two small, confused boys on board. They were alone, only spoke French, and no one came to get them. The newspapers called them the waifs of the deep, and their pictures were everywhere. Margaret Hayes, who spoke French and survived the Titanic, took them in. She tried to figure out their story. The boys, known only as Lotto and Louis, played quietly. They didn't know the whole world was wondering about them. Who were they? Where were their parents? Everyone wanted to know. People had many ideas. Were their parents lost? Or did they travel with a nanny who died? The only hint was that they said their father's name was Louis. But the name Hoffman didn't lead anywhere. For weeks, the Titanic Orphans were a sad puzzle, and no one knew what would happen to them. Their story showed both hope and sadness. It was a strong reminder of how the sinking of the Titanic changed people's lives forever. The truth started in Nice, France, with Michel Navratil and his brother Edmond. Their parents were going through a tough breakup. Their father, Michel Sr., was allowed to visit them for a short time over Easter, but instead, he decided to run away with his sons to America. He used a fake name, Louis M. Hoffman, and bought second-class tickets on the Titanic. He hoped to start fresh. On the ship, Michel Sr. kept his sons close. He tried not to draw attention and only spoke French. To others, they were the Hoffman family. But really, he was a father who was desperate and risking everything. Every moment was filled with worry. His plan depended on getting to New York without being noticed. No one knew the truth. He was running from a broken heart, not from the law. He had no idea he picked a ship that was going to sink. The Navratil family's fate was sealed the moment they got on the Titanic. On April 14, 1912, disaster happened. Michel Sr. woke his sons, dressed them in warm clothes, and carried them through the mess to the lifeboats. At Lifeboat D, the very last lifeboat launched, he knew he couldn't go. Only women and children were allowed. He wrapped his sons in a blanket, kissed them goodbye, and whispered a last message for their mother. With a heavy heart, he put them in the lifeboat, watching as they disappeared into the night. Michel Sr. stayed on the deck, facing his end with quiet bravery. His body was found, later identified only as Louis M. Hoffman. He was buried in Halifax. And his real name was still a secret. His last act was saving his sons, even as he lost everything. The boys lived. But their father's sacrifice would change their lives forever. The two French-speaking boys in New York became famous worldwide. Who were they, and where was their family? Margaret Hayes took care of them while everyone searched for answers. In France, Michel Navratil was very worried. Her sons had disappeared with their father. Then, she saw their picture in a newspaper and knew right away they were her boys. Once her identity was confirmed, Marcel traveled across the Atlantic. Her heart was split between relief and sadness. The news followed her every step, building excitement for the reunion. The mystery was almost solved. The world waited for a mother's hug to end the story. The tale of the Titanic Orphans was about to reach its most emotional part. Even in tragedy, there was still hope. On May 16, 1912, Michel Navratil met her sons again in New York, ending weeks of sadness. The family went back to France, changed forever by loss, but together again. Edmond became an architect, served in World War II, and then passed away young. Michel got a high degree, became a philosophy professor, and often talked about the Titanic, making sure the story was never forgotten. He went to events to remember the Titanic, visited where the ship sank, and lived to be 92. He was the last male survivor of the Titanic. Their story remains a rare bright spot of hope in a sad event. It shows a father's love, a mother's strong will, and how tough two small boys were. The Navratil brothers remind us that Titanic legacy is more than a shipwreck. It's about people, moments, and sacrifice. If this moved you, explore more of the untold Titanic stories on our channel. Until next time, thanks for watching.